Grab some pegboard hooks and shelves from your local dollar store and buy some inexpensive pegboards. Do you have leftover peel and stick wallpaper from wallpapering a wall or other project? Lay your wallpaper face down on a table and position the pegboards on the paper with a few inches of space between each pegboard. Outline each pegboard with a pencil and cut out each piece of wallpaper, including an additional inch outside the outline. With some sharp scissors, cut out the corners of the wallpaper. Peel the backing off the wallpaper and lay the pegboard face down on the sticky side of the paper. Press down firmly so you know the wallpaper is sticking. Wrap the outer edges of the wallpaper up and over the side edges of the pegboard. Take a screwdriver, pencil, or other poker-type object and poke holes through the wallpaper and into the pegboard holes. You can do this for feeling for the pegboard holes with your finger or by holding it up to the light to see the hole. Hang the pegboard with the hardware provided so it is secure on the wall. Line up with the wallpaper pattern on your wall with the covered pegboard. The hardest part is sometimes matching up the pattern on the wall, but once you find it, it is so fun to line it up and see the pegboard disappear into the matching pattern. Insert the pegboard hooks into the wallpapered pegboard to hold your keys, or hang a pegboard shelf to hold dryer sheets in your laundry room. Style with pretty home decor, or use to store functional items, or both. I hope this inspired you to create some inexpensive and stylish storage using Dollar Tree pegboard supplies and leftover wallpaper.
To begin, I purchased a 36 by 48 piece of acrylic from Home Depot. To prep the piece, I covered all four corners with 2 layers of painter tape, measured up and over 1.5 inches, and marked. I then used a regular drill bit to slowly drill the hole into the acrylic, making sure not to crack it. This will come in handy later. Making a rectangle, I measured up from the bottom 2.5 inches and marked it. 6.5 inches from each side and down 8.5 inches from the top. I used painter's tape to mark these measurements. Then, measuring 5-inch strips, I marked and taped off vertical lines and repeated this step for the horizontal lines. The tape I used to make these is called charting tape, but you can use any color tape that matches your decor. After all the lines were marked, I cut the excess tape off with an X-Acto knife and removed the painter's tape. I then went outside to give my sign standoffs a coat of gold spray paint to match the rest of my calendar. While these were drying, I secured my vinyl letters to mark the days of the week to the top of my calendar. I made these with my Cricut, but you could cut your own or get a set of stickers from the craft store to spell out the days of the week. Now it's time to hang. Having a partner comes in handy to hold the calendar up to make sure it's level and then mark the corners where you drilled. The standoffs I ordered came with anchors and screws, so I first secured the drywall anchors to the wall, and then I drilled in the base of the standoff. Then we lifted the calendar and slid the pre-drilled holes onto the screws and secured them with the stoppers. I am thrilled with how this calendar turned out. It's a chic way to plan out the week or the month without being a total eyesore. Because it's totally customizable, you can use it in any room of your house to fit your decor. Using dry erase markers to add the dates, this is the perfect addition to my new home office. I hope this inspired you to make your own giant acrylic calendar.
We're going to paint the entire corkboard and frame. I've got a product here which is like a paint and primer all in one. So I'm using this blue tape, and all I'm doing is just protecting the edge of the frame, and I want to find my center point. So at least I have a center point to start with. Okay, now we're going to get out these really cool rollers. What I like to do is use some good old press and seal and cover. This is just a serving tray, but first we need to load our handle and load some paint into our sponge. We're using Modern Masters metallic paint. You're just going to roll back and forth through that paint and get that loaded into the sponge. Now you can grab your pattern and you're going to put this into the outside holes. So you can either just roll it by hand and get the pattern with some paint on there. So we're going to grab our cork board and we are just going to roll. And look how simple and fast that actually goes. So we're going to let this dry, and now we're going to dress up the frame. I'm just taping off around the parameter. This is foil adhesive. And we are going to brush this on to the complete frame. Okay, so we have our foil adhesive is completely dry. It's really, really sticky, but it's not a wet stick. So the next thing we're going to do is grab some fabulous foil, cut this in half, place this. So I've cut it long enough that I'd have strips to work with. Anywhere there's foil adhesive, it is going to grab it. And you just scrub to get the foil to transfer. Let's peek. Let's see how that transfers. And see if I can get more of a transfer. So we're going to lift this side up, and that's actually looking pretty awesome there. So here we're going to do a quick reveal. You just want to go ahead and put a top coat on there to protect. Any top coat will work. Final coat's the one we're using, and that is it. This is just a fun, simple project. And we'll definitely give you something where you can create something custom to every room.
Today's project is going to feature this beautiful vintage shutter. We're going to put that to the side, and I'm going to pull out an ordinary canvas drop cloth. That is what we're going to be making some of our organizational pouches out of. So canvas drop cloth is great for DIY and crafting. I do recommend that you go ahead and give it a hot wash and dry so that it shrinks up. And then now it's time to measure. So I laid out my shutter and I knew exactly what size pouches I want to make. And so whatever size your shutter ends up being, just make sure you make your proper measurements and cut here. I'm using pinking shears just to kind of reduce some of the fraying. Not 100% necessary. You could use regular scissors for this step. But I'm going to get it all cut out, and I'm actually going to create 2 pouches. And then the next step after we're done cutting all this out is going to be to glue the sides together to create faux seams. Now, if you are a seamstress, you absolutely could sew this project, but I'm going to be using the Sure Bonder fabric glue sticks on a low temp glue gun. So there I'm going ahead and putting it on the sides of the pouches to glue them down. I did create a lip at the top of my pouch just for some extra strength for the fabric. I love the canvas because it's super durable, but just that added strength for, since I'm going to be hanging paperwork and mail and stuff like that. Okay, so once you've got it all glued, you're actually going to flip it inside out. All right, next, like I said, we're going to pull out our shutter. It's a big one now. You may end up choosing a smaller one for your liking, but I had this beautiful French New Orleans shutter in my vintage stash, and I couldn't wait to create something with it. So I'm going to lay out my pouches, and then I have some other vintage elements that I'm going to use on this entryway piece. I have a vintage decorative molding piece at the top and a vintage mirror that I have turned into a chalkboard. Next, I'm going to grab my drill. It has a square head bit, drill bit on it right now because I'm using some pocket hole screws, which are very nice because number one, they keep you from having to make pilot holes for your drill, for your screw to go in, but they're also decorative because they're a beautiful bronze color. So I think they'll really tie into my vintage Southern kind of theme I have going here. So the most important part about screwing a screw into fabric is to keep the fabric near where your screw is going in really nice and taut. That way your fabric doesn't try to spin up into your screw. If you don't try to do this, it will try to spin up into your screw. You will see. All right, I'm just going to get the last of these screws in here on this second pocket. Like I said, it's coming together beautifully. I'm keeping my fabric kind of pulled tight. One of my pockets is a little bit deeper than the other. I did that just because I was thinking about paperwork and things like that that might be put in there that would be a little bigger. Now, I also have these beautiful antique library kind of labels. They're vintage inspired reproduction, but I just use a little hot glue to glue them on the front of each pocket. And I'm going to be able to slip a little piece of cardstock in those to change out the labels whenever I like. So that's going to be fun. Now I'm going to use those other 2 pocket hole screws that I told you I had. And I'm going to place those just in the center. And I have a little bit of hanging rope on the back of that decorative molding and on the back of that chalkboard mirror. And that's just going to be what hangs on my pocket hole screw. Next, I had these little hooks lying around, and I thought, we always have some extra keys around the house, either in a bowl or in a tray somewhere, and I thought it'd be nice to have them hanging up. So I'm just going to measure out that they're properly spaced and get those nailed in as well. I did have to drill some pilot holes for these because I was not using screws, so I'm just drilling little tiny pilot holes to let the nail go in easier. Now, these took a little persuasion to get in. I had to do some gentle yet forceful tapping, but I got all 3 of them in and they look lovely and they are holding nicely. So our design is complete. It looks amazing. I really, really, really love all the vintage elements, the repurposing, the unexpected use of the canvas drop cloth. This would look great in any home or office. So I hope you're inspired to make one of your very own.